Well, it is not very often that I actually talk about serious topics like this. Divorce, hidden abuses, and eventually healing are all processes. They are, unfortunately, more prevalent in today's society than they used to be. Whether that is a good thing or a bad thing, only God knows, to be honest. But it's a really painful topic, this one. Unfortunately, it can also replicate along your entire family. I mean, my grandfather got divorced from my grandmother on my mother's side. My father, my mother got divorced. I got divorced, right? My dad actually got divorced twice. Yeah, but his dad and mum, they didn't get divorced, right? But the thing is that the worst thing actually is the pain of parental alienation, the pain that occurs along the way with abuse, financial, mental, sometimes physical abuse. Obviously, that's more prevalent when it comes to males against females. But I do think that us men, we actually get forgotten in this situation. We get tarred with the same brush of us being the dominant one, us being in control of the female, us getting the power in the power struggle, and actually us manipulating the other person. But in many cases, as you know, Ehsan, from your research and experience in this, it isn't just the women who are being abused. And I know from my own experience, which fortunately now is great. I have no problems at all with my ex-wife. She's great. She looks after my daughter. She's wonderful. She's got a new partner. I have no issues at all with her. We can talk on a call. We meet when we see each other. We're fine. There's no issues. But obviously, in the beginning of these sort of situations, there are many, many factors that play out, and actually, those factors are very, very damaging in the short term to children if they are old enough to understand what's going on. I think that if you are going through divorce, you need to find some sort of if you haven't actually decided you're definitely getting divorced, I think you need to find some sort of counseling if you can. I think that can rectify situation potentially. But I do think that it's painful for everybody. And in fact, if you are thinking of getting divorced, rather than waiting until you are very, very old to get divorced whilst your children have grown up, like my mother pretty much did. I mean, I was 15, my brother was 13, and we were very, very affected by the divorce. Maybe it might be better to get divorced earlier, as I did. So I don't know, Ehsan. Sorry to waffle there and about it, but I thought it's good to just frame what we're going to talk about here so that everybody can kind of understand the situation, you know?
No, you're absolutely right. When it comes to divorce, it is painful and stressing enough. Why some people choose to make it more difficult for each other. More often than not, there is only one party is trying to be the difficult one. The other one is trying to resolve things amicably, peacefully. And we don't want to say who is playing the victim game, who is not playing the victim game. But when children are involved, I think both parties need to act responsibly and reasonably. They come up with horrendous, wild allegations against another party, and the other party needs to go and prove himself or herself in rare cases. It is unacceptable. I think we need to inject some kind of common sense into the entire process. And we should stop seeing one gender superior over the other and say, okay, this gender is right and we need to protect, the other one needs to go and like kind of prove himself. That is wrong. We need to change the law. I experienced that firsthand. False, horrendous allegations. It was so obvious they were lies. They were so obvious they were made up. And nobody believed it. Nobody. However, because of certain words and certain accusations made, the judges were limited and they had to take cautious, basically. Basically, I didn't have a solicitor, and the other party's solicitor, they came up with horrendous lies that slandered me. I even blacked out during one of the hearings, and the ambulance services had to come and save my life, which I'm thankful to. The magistrates and the ambulance service to like kind of save my life. But nobody did anything against that solicitor. Why? Because of the profession he has, and I had to provide substantial evidence that basically he abused his position of trust. So, lies after lies, and a female barrister lied. I exposed the barrister, the solicitor. Eventually, they couldn't turn up to the courtrooms anymore, and the whole thing went in the hands of...
Why did the judge kind of stop them from being allowed to be involved? Is that what happened?
Because we have a lenient system, we have a fair system, and we want to give everybody the benefit of the doubt. And when some difficult things happen, they want to be fair. But in my case, it was miscarriage of justice. It was miscarriage of justice perpetrated by certain legal representatives, not the lawmakers or the judges involved. The judges trusted the solicitor or the barrister. They were in contempt of court, but they didn't want to bring in contempt of court because of their profession, because of a family-related thing. But after I presented over 150 pages of evidence that everything's been made up and they lied, they eventually, the judge, which I'm always thankful to, said to the respondent that he wouldn't accept any of her excuses and things should move on. And I asked for like kind of proper investigation and proper analysis of the matter, because that was defamation of character, that was slander, that was reputational damage, and of course, psychological, emotional, and economical abuse, which I had to prove under Domestic Abuse Act 2021 and Perjury Act 1911 and I believe 1991, if I'm not mistaken. So I had to do research by myself because I didn't have, and I do not have, the amount of money to splash on.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, that's the thing. Sorry to interrupt. It really can be the financial abuse can actually be during the process and also after the process, and even before, which is interesting. I mean, I have my ex-girlfriend was one of them. She was affected massively just because, you know, the payment for her and the kids might be a week late, just on purpose, just to nudge her into a very different mindset. Unfortunately, when we're in that mindset of scarcity, it can throw us into the reptilian brain, if you know what I mean. And then that means that we can seem to be unstable, but actually we're not unstable. We're just panicking about how we're going to feed our children, right? And this is very, very difficult. And this doesn't occur just with women, guys doing it to women. It also occurs with women doing it to men. you know, and the gaslighting is horrendous. Splitting the friends of the people is also horrendous. That's a dreadful thing, because what happens is that your friends side with one person because they only hear one side of the story. And I think that children get really deeply affected by this, and it can take, you know, decade or so, I think, for everybody to recover. Sometimes people are just, but sometimes people are just poisonous. Sometimes people are just poisonous. I mean, my mother and father, it probably took them. My dad was pretty cool. He never actually got angry. He ate sandwiches for the best part of a year whilst he was trying to formulate an offer, which was not accepted. My mother was extremely emotional. Her solicitors, who I believe were negligent actually in the whole thing. I'm not going to mention who they are, who they were, because I have some business that's ongoing with them. But I think that the solicitors must see if someone is emotionally triggered, and at that point, if someone is highly emotional, they must engage, I believe, with a coach or a counselor to calm that person down and actually encourage them to see things rationally. But they don't, and the reason they don't is because they want to encourage spending of money. They want to encourage loss of funds, right? They want someone to pay their bills. So they try to extend these situations. You know, when a letter costs £50 that comes into your solicitor, and then it costs £50 for them to send a response to the letter, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to work out that actually that can be financial abuse. And unfortunately, with some couples, or ex-husbands and wives, this can go on for a lifetime, until the children are in fact of an age when there's a cutoff date. This can continue up until that date. But I think it's very, very dangerous, certainly within the United Kingdom, to not understand the law, to not understand that, in fact, if you don't stay calm and rational and analyze what's going on to you, you're going to go and you're going to be a victim. And unfortunately, we don't know we're a victim until we turn around and go, oh, I was a victim. And I'm not saying anything about me. My divorce is long gone. That's nothing to do with this conversation. But I do know a number of people that were victims, but unfortunately they didn't realize they were victims. And then they go through this whole cycle of abuse, which is, oh, was I a victim? And then there's a whole wheel, isn't there? That's deeply disturbing, actually, because in the beginning of that, you're like, no, I wasn't a victim, and you deny being a victim. But then one day you're like, oh, maybe I was a victim. And then you, once you accept that you were a victim, that's the time when you actually start to rebuild yourself. But in fact, it can take 10 or 20 years. I think. I mean, look, I got divorced probably only 5 years ago, but I left my wife. Let me see, my daughter's nearly 13, so I left my wife when she was one and a bit. I didn't move far away because I wanted to do as much childcare as possible, because it's very important you spend time with your children of as much possible time as you can. But it is extremely difficult to have a career and also have be able to do that childcare. And, you know, take my hat off to my ex-wife. She did a great job of bringing up our daughter and working, and you know, very, very proud to say that, you know, she did a fantastic job. And what can I say? It's really, really difficult. Life is really difficult, and I believe it all stems back to the lack of thought when we are actually getting married in the first place. The lack of thought when choosing a partner in the first place. I've obviously watched too many episodes of Bridgerton, clearly. I don't believe in arranged marriages. I think that is something that is just a no for me. Like, arranged marriages, you know, that's what I do to arranged marriages, right? Because I think that they are toxic in many cases. But what I do think is that having a good match and some thought behind who you're going to marry, why you're marrying them, what woman you want or what man you want if you're a female or whatever, I think is important. I think that taking the time to look at the background, the history of their family, like are their parents still together, that's a great one, right? Because if their parents are together, you've actually got a much better chance of staying with that woman as opposed to getting divorced quite easily. And, you know, and then there's obviously the upbringing, like I say, and desires in life. Like, do they want to have a job? Do they want to be a mother? Do you want the mother of your children to work? Do you not? You know, do they want a house husband? Right? Like, it can be this broad, because nowadays everything goes, right? Like you can do anything that you want these days, but it's like, it's just a bizarre situation that now, especially with apps like Tinder and randomly meeting people based upon their interests, we are, I believe, really struggling with really any guidance that we should have, because we can arrange a date just like this. I can go and arrange a date to go and talk to a woman in the next couple of days, right? Just based upon 5 different things that they posted on their Tinder profile, which could be complete lies, right? Yeah. And they might look at my profile and go, oh, he looks very successful. That's just the guy that I want, right? And in fact, it can be completely manipulation from the word go. And relationships are not easy, man, you know, and families are not easy. But I think, like I say, if we were more choosy and more clued up about what we want, maybe we need a questionnaire. I mean, that might be something, but life just takes its twists and turns. And when you look in the rear view mirror, it makes sense. But up until that point, it really, we are at the mercy of our bad decisions in many cases.
I'm glad you have quite a lot of good things to say about your ex, because when we try to alienate children from another parent, I strongly believe this is child abuse. I strongly believe that this is psychological and emotional abuse of the alienated parent. And that is a crime that has to be sentenced, and the alienating parent should be admitted to prison, not for a few months, but for years, and her parental responsibility or his parental responsibility taken away from them permanently because of the damages they cause and impose, not only to the child, to the alienated parent, and also normalizing this horrendous behavior in the society, and are damaging and destroying social norms. So these people aren't normal individuals. Strong word, I know, but this is a personal opinion. This is crime against humanity. This is a criminal act.
It is, but I've got to stop you.
It is.
Oh, okay. Go on.
But it is not actually defined as a criminal act in law.
Well, in America, I actually know a guy called Ted Rubin, and we talked about this because he was one of the only people. He's the first person to have his ex-wife, convicted of parental alienation. Oh. But the thing is that
in America, it's a crime, probably, but in the UK or some European countries, is not a crime.
But it doesn't matter, and I'll tell you why it doesn't matter, right? Because when the damage is done, when the damage has been done, okay, it can never, perhaps ever recover. And this is what happened to him. He doesn't, I believe he doesn't speak to either of his daughters. I think he's got 2. And I don't think he speaks to either of them because they don't want to talk to him, because they blame him based upon whatever their mother has said. They blame him for whatever, right? And this isn't a fathers for justice conversation, right? But like, I know I've got a friend who's now ex-wife. She ran away to Ireland. So this is what happened to the dude, right? He's a lovely guy. Really earns a lot of money. He's clever, calm, into exercise. Super guy. Known him for 20 years, right? Since maybe longer, maybe 25. And he got home one day. He had like a 4 or 5 bedroom house, and I actually can't believe it. That's why I'm laughing, because it's so ridiculous. But literally, he got home one day and he was married. He's an Indian dude, and he was married to this, from what I remember, this Irish woman who I didn't not get on with her. I didn't get on with her. It was just kind of like I couldn't really understand her. There was just sort of a bit of a disconnect, because you always meet people like that, right? And he was my friend, and also my wife liked him as well. So they were kind of acquaintances as well. And then he got home one day, I kid you not, right? And he's got 2 kids at this point. So he's got 2 kids, right? I believe at the time, maybe they were 3 and 5, or yeah, definitely younger than 5. Maybe they were 2 and 4, something like that. 2 girls. And he basically returned home, and I kid you not, his wife was gone. His kids were gone. Everything in the house was gone. And I believe that includes the radiators as well as all the furniture. Every single thing in that home, gone. Right? And he was big into fathers for justice, right? And rightfully so, because that thing was just, I mean, I would use some select words, but I don't swear. I don't use profanities when I talk much, unless it's in Croatian. So I could potentially start to swear in Croatian, but I'm trying to avoid that too. But literally, when he told me this, I was just like, I was actually in so much shock, because I saw it. I think I saw a post, or maybe he messaged me or whatever afterwards. And I was so surprised that it cut me to the core, right? And now he's got a new wife, right? Who's Indian as well, who looks absolutely lovely, right? And she obviously adopted the kids when he got them back, which I don't know how quickly it was, but I think it took 1 or 2 years to get them back. But my point of this whole story is that here in our brains, right, we really don't understand other people and what's going on in their brains. Like we really don't understand them. Yeah. And that's why we need to be more than cautious before we get married. Yeah. And if children are involved, we still need to be more. We need to be even more than cautious.
Because you're responsible for another human being as well.
But also accidents can happen, right? And if you've got a baby on the way, I'm not saying that you should or should not get married. But what I am saying is that being very, very careful and thoughtful about all of these major decisions in your life really, really is necessary. And yeah, I'm still shocked by telling you that story. I'd actually forgotten about that. I've got another friend who mentioning no names, basically was financially abused, dramatically financially abused. He put in a lot of money into everything, and I mean, it is literally horrendous what can happen. But the thing is that whilst the kids might be young in a lot of these relationships, a toxic environment where people are living can actually be worse than splitting up and one of the parents moving out. Because actually, you might say, well, they're young, they're not going to notice. You telling me that a 2 and a 4-year-old or a 6 and an 8 or an 8 and a 10 or even a baby and a 1-year-old, you telling me they don't have any emotional intelligence? Because I would argue the opposite. I would say actually that those children or that child probably has more emotional intelligence than the majority of people. So they're absorbing these vibrations, and then they might have outbursts. They might be maybe angry at school, or they might be, whatever it is. So I'm a believer myself in, if you're going to have divorce, if divorce is the only option, if you've been through counseling, you've really decided that there's nothing you can do, you're not going to get back together, one person needs to actually just move out, and you need to be grown up about it. You need to remove your emotions entirely from the situation. You need to be businesslike. That's how I would describe this, businesslike. Yeah. Because one of my mentors, she got divorced, and she was absolutely businesslike about the entire thing. She helped her ex-husband to apply for a job. I mean, you wouldn't believe it. She helped him to apply for a job. She helped him to write a letter to dispute something at his work after he'd had a dismissal. I mean, you wouldn't believe it, right? I know loads and loads of people, and I'm privileged to have access to all sorts of information about this stuff. And I mean, literally, it's just stepping back, in my opinion, and focusing on your self-care, and actually that self-care and the time with your children, if you have children, is the most important thing. Because the money, that can come later. You can make the money later, because frankly, in the UK, you don't want to make a load of money anyway until you're divorced, because actually your partner can come after you if you don't have a signed agreement that says that it's a null and final settlement. You are in big trouble, because if you went off and you earned, say you didn't have this piece of paper, right, and you didn't have a financial settlement, a financial order, and you went off and you didn't have that signed, and then you went and you made 10 million, and your ex-wife came along and said, oh, well, I'm going to have half of that, then actually she might be given half of that money, right? Because you in theory are still basically, what's the word I'm looking for? You still have to basically give her that money if she comes for it. So, and each country, each region is very different in its law. So I think, you must, in my personal opinion, finding legal advice is very, very important. And if you are being mentally abused, you must find the right solicitor, the right lawyer for that, the right barrister for that, so that they treat you in a way that you need to be treated. I mean, I found the right law firm. They dealt with all the paperwork. Every time I got a letter from them, I got a bill, and it was killing me. Right. I would literally open these purple. It was a purple letterhead paper, and I could just see it through the window of the envelopes. So I knew it was from them, and I knew it was a bill. And at one point I was getting maybe 2 bills a week from this company, and they wanted payment every month. And I wasn't earning a lot of money at the time. And because that is also quite important if you're going through divorce and your partner isn't earning any money, and if you're making a lot of money, then that can also cause problems. But I just wasn't making a lot of money at the time. It was a tricky time in my life, and I would see these purple envelopes, and I would open the envelope and just have to sit down when I opened it, realizing, that I could see my bank balance dwindling every time I'd have to pay this bill once a month. And unfortunately, they will stop work if you don't take care of it, and then there's the question of the letters, the inbound letters, right? And then the inbound emails, right? Because they charge you. If you respond to an email, they charge you for reading your response. So if you're emotional, say you're a really emotional person like my mother was, she'll call her, bless her, rest her soul, my mother, rest her soul. But she would call her solicitors and speak to the barrister on the phone, right? And she would say, "Oh, he's doing such dreadful things." I do quite a good impression of her, actually. Bless her. She was such a cool person, but she was so emotional that she would have probably called them up, and then they would have charged her maybe £150 for a 10-minute or a 5-minute phone call. Wow. And then they write a letter based upon what she told them. And then they would probably send, and then they would get a response that my father would do himself, because he's a born administrator. My dad was a born administrator. He's 91 now, and they got divorced, ages ago. But literally, so basically, just from one phone call, you're looking at, that's like £300, just like that. Click of the finger, and then it's a spiral out of all control, because you then get another one, then you get a response, and then you have to reply to the response, and then another reply comes, and then so it's a continual trail of very costly paperwork that just hurts every single time. So that's why a lot of people, they're applying for divorces themselves, like you have, and congratulations on that. I must admit, I think it's great that you've done it, buddy. And and I'm glad that it wasn't, that you're alive, frankly.
It was the most painful and dreading situation, because the other party chose not to be responsible and reasonable. And yeah, so speaking of solicitors, not all of them, some of them, they actually make money out of people's misery, and that's their business. So as you said, they put their emotions out and they look for business opportunities within people's problems, and they try to escalate things, which is quite unethical, inhuman. But hey ho, thanks to legal tech, moving forward, less and less people would need the help of such irresponsible and unethical solicitors.
Can I just ask you, what do you mean? Are you talking about writing tools like ChatGPT and Gemini and these sorts of tools?
Yeah, like that. Some technology like that. There are a few software companies. Basically, they combine all those like kind of letters and like kind of exhibits or whatever you need together. Very cheap. I know my ex's solicitor. He was a specialized and experienced solicitor. He didn't comply with the basic principles of law when he filed for like kind of bundles and things. The court returned the bundle twice to him, and in one of the orders, they ordered the solicitor to like kind of comply with the law and refile it. He delayed everything. He postponed everything. Just horrendous. I don't even wish that for my enemy to go through such thing and deal with such irresponsible, unethical individuals who are actually not only in breach of individuals' legal and human rights, but also they abuse the legal system, their position of trust, and interfere with the administration of justice. They are damaging to our society and to people's lives. So after that, my ex became litigant in person, represented herself. No more solicitors, no more barristers, because during one of the hearings, 3 minutes to the hearing, I exposed the barrister that she lied to the judge. And the judge probed her, the barrister, and the barrister admitted, yes, we didn't serve the applicant, me, with the legal paperwork for a long time. Isn't it terrible? Being in contempt of court? So it comes to one thing: integrity, dignity. I know it might be very idealistic of me to think that everyone is dignified and has integrity, But I would like to think so, because this is the foundation of the British justice system. Integrity. And if you lack integrity, you lack humanity. You shouldn't be in a position to deal with such sensitive matters, because divorce, when children are involved, very sensitive. You're talking about the next generation.
But also, it's not just that. It's not just England. It's actually a global phenomenon, right?
Unfortunately, it is.
When you hear about some of these decisions that are made all over the world, I'm not going to mention what's happened recently because this is not a political piece, but I do think that we are in a very strange time right now. We're at a point in life where I believe these sorts of people will find their comeuppance rather quickly. I think that with all of this new technology, I believe that there are ways now where you can actually analyze everything that they've done. You can look at all sorts of weaknesses and strengths that people have. But I think it's very important that whilst this process is happening, that you as an individual, if you do decide that you're going to deal with this on your own, I think perhaps get some advice in the first place and go from there. But also make sure that you collate all the information, collect all the documentation, file it, organize it, put a covering letter on it to explain what's in the actual folder that you are presenting, because judges, they don't want to read everything, right? They don't want to read everything, and
they don't have time, not because they don't want to.
I know they don't have time, but not being afraid to fight for yourself is also something that you need
and one thing
to be aware of.
Yeah, one thing is, I have a lot of respect for all these judges, because of the whole situation imposed upon me. I ended up in hospital a few times. I literally felt I was about to die. Literally, I felt I was about to die.
I understand that very well.
I even wrote my will, believe it or not, because I literally felt that's it. That's the end. Why? Because of the lies and the horrendous accusations from the other party. And those who were involved. And when I kind of complained about them, about their conduct, they slandered me, they lied, contradicting statements within their report and documents. Even a police officer wrote to me and said, if I need a witness in the court, upon the court's request, they can become a witness. Only because the other party and her witnesses, they lied. And I had videos and pictures. Even the police had the evidence that the words in that witness statement, they were utter lies.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So the judges don't have time to read everything, and because of interfering with the administration of justice. So these individuals, they are narcissists, they are sociopaths.
Of course. But that's
they confuse. They confuse the legal proceedings.
Exactly.
They frustrate the legal proceedings.
But that's why you need to list all your paperwork in order. You need to file it numbered.
You need to be very strong. It is really emotionally draining.
All of your text messages that you receive, all your emails, everything needs printing out, putting in a file, and filing, and then you introduce it and you say, if you would like to reference this and have a look deeper, I will include the reference to that on page 97, whatever it is, right? But the thing is that if you don't do that, you will be seriously trampled, absolutely, completely. But to cope with all of this, you need a really strong support system. You need friends who've perhaps been through divorce, who can help you, who can emotionally support you, who can say to you, look, you need to be doing this, that, and the other. And that's what I had. I had that, thankfully. But looking back now, I had it easy compared to some of the friends that I know and what happened to them. But But I do think that looking into, you know, where you're at right now and actually what you want out of this divorce is a great thing. But to be honest, I think the most important thing is that you come out with your life, because actually it might sound funny, but look, if you go and have a heart attack because you have a panic attack and you can't breathe and you frigging die, then you're going to get nothing and you're going to end up with nothing. And wouldn't you rather just walk away with your life? I mean, like that's the ultimate, because you can start again, right? If you walk away with your life and maybe a small amount of money in your pocket, you can live and you can rebuild yourself, you know. But there are many ways to tackle this, and I think each situation is completely different. Each relationship is different. But look, let's be real. If you know people who are thinking of getting married, maybe offer them some advice, or maybe don't.
Nat, I think as a society, and that's a global shift, people tend not to give advice to each other. And when things go wrong, they say, I wanted to tell you.
Yeah, because they don't want to emotionally have a conflict. This is the problem. Yeah. And unfortunately, it goes back to the beginning of realizing that we don't know everything. Love is blind in many ways. Us as guys, we are a lot luckier because generally we don't get physically abused by women. Generally, I'm not saying that doesn't happen.
Yeah.
But actually we're luckier in that respect, because a lot of guys can physically abuse their wives. But I actually think mental abuse combined with physical abuse is pretty awful. But mental abuse combined with financial abuse is also equally awful, right? So I think
abuse in any form is unacceptable.
It is, but working out what sort of a person you are, working out your weaknesses, your strengths, etc., is a good place to start before you even entertain any of this stuff, right? And you know, I think for me, that's kind of a big spill of you know, and we can dig into any one of these points at some point if people come back to us and request us talking about any of this. We can go back in and dig into details, you know, and hopefully if you're listening to this and you really understand what on earth goes on and you see someone who's in an abusive relationship, maybe you want to offer them an olive branch and actually help them to get away from that relationship, because it's absolutely awful. Because when you're in it, you really don't realize that you're a victim. And actually victims, I have a personal friend of mine who is a female. She was a victim for a long time, had just one son, I think. And she's still going through the healing process. She admits it herself, you know, and that was, I don't know, maybe 3-4 years ago. And I think a lot of women, they heal quicker than us guys. We take a lot longer in some instances to heal. But you know, if you're listening to this and you're going through it, you're going through hell right now, then just understand that it ain't going to last long. Rock bottom is the place. Once you get there, you're going to go up from there. So, you know, that's it really, as far as I'm concerned. And if you want to reach out to us, we will drop our information at the bottom of this, and we'd be delighted to hear from you. This is Nat and Ehsan signing off.